investigation, some tests on him. He's certainly being guarded by a Lakeland police officer right now, and we're sending officers over there to keep a watch on him. But he is a dangerous person. He is a dangerous young man, and even though he's 13, he committed an adult crime, and I agree with the sheriff. He needs to be held accountable to exactly for the crime that he committed. You can't be 13 and continue to get away with crimes like this, and I agree wholeheartedly with the sheriff. I do want to show you one photograph, which I think is instructive. This is shortly after they bailed out of the car and were running down the sidewalk. This is from the in-car camera of Officer Smith. It is a still photograph. He ran down the sidewalk, running east on the sidewalk, at which point Officer Smith tried to cut him off with his car. He turned around and ran back to the west. He's fortunate, and by he I mean Officer Smith is fortunate, that Dalmas decided not to just wheel around and shoot Officer Smith in the head, because Officer Smith had a lot going on at the time. He's trying to give instructions on the radio. He's trying to navigate his police car. He has a lot of things going on in the cockpit of that car, and he would have a difficult time getting his weapon out and defending himself. Fortunately, Dalmas decided to run. Instead of not engage him, he decided to engage him later. But this is a still photograph. For those that didn't see the video clearly, you can clearly see the handgun in his right hand that he's running with. And that's a still photograph off the in-car camera. So, all right. I also have some updates on some other another call that happened in Lakeland this morning. I'll do that after the sheriff and I take questions. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to stand for questions. So.
When Officer Smith was already in the neighborhood, did he receive a call that there was a shooting in progress, or did he just hear the shooting and decided to pursue?
Both. He was in the neighborhood dealing with another issue unrelated to this shooting. He heard the shots and then heard the call go out over the radio and started immediately heading into that area. It was not at Simpson Park. Some of the reports I read last night that you guys reported that the shooting occurred at Simpson Park. That is not correct. It did not occur at Simpson Park. It was actually probably about 2 or 3 blocks west of Simpson Park. Okay.
Now, are these gang members or just gang affiliated? Like, what's the difference?
Well, they're gang affiliated. They're not certified. There's a process they have to go through to be certified as a gang member. These guys just are not old enough probably to have gone through that process and the paperwork, but they're well on their way to be fully associated or fully identified gang members. They're just not there yet. At least 2 of them. No.
Is it possible these actions were trying to get that certification? I mean, is this kind of is that how that's?
Yeah, I don't know what right now we don't have that information, so certainly that would be in their mind a check mark on their resume that they would probably present for certification. Yes, certainly a possibility.
And can you clarify? Obviously, at this point, Officer Smith does not know, obviously, the age of the child, correct, or the team that's shooting at him?
He doesn't know. Doesn't matter really. He doesn't know the age, and he doesn't know their name. Doesn't know anything about them. Look, Officer Smith just came to work yesterday, like all the Lakeland officers do, like all of the Lakeland police officers do, and officers all over the state and deputies all over the state. He had no idea this was going to turn out the way it turned out. He had no idea that this individual that he was chasing. Now, he had a pretty good idea that the guy was violent because he could see the handgun, but he didn't have any idea the guy was going to wheel around on him and take a shot. Thank God he prepared just for that event in case it did happen, and he was able to address it the way he was trained to address it. But no, he had no idea.
And you recovered the gun?
We did.
Okay, and do you know how many shots were left in the gun? Were there any shots left in the gun?
I'll leave that up to the sheriff and the investigators to talk about later if they want. So yes, we do probably have a pretty good idea, but they're still trying to firm that up just to make sure.
How old is Officer Smith? And was he one of the ones that were recruited from New York?
He did come from New York. He's one of the NYPD officers we recruited from New York. And I would get you the age. I would, if I had to guess, based on my conversation with him last night, I would say late 20s, early 30s. Although he may be 50, just a young-looking, fellow. So, but anything else?
Did you recover additional ammo as well in the car?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any additional ammo that we recovered. So,
we did recover spent casings from the right front where Leonard Spate was sitting. So it appeared that part of the shots that were fired then or some other time, he was sitting in the right front seat because the casings were all around where he was sitting. And keep in mind, we're still in the initial stages of the investigations. All of those questions will be answered later on. But what should be astounding to all of you, had these violent, dangerous criminals that were under the age of 18 been taken serious on the front end, then this event may not have happened last night. But when it's just like any other person, when you allow them to get away with it and allow them to get away with it, and they are in trouble for a felony, and you give them the gift of probation, and they don't follow the probation, and they don't follow the probation, and they're not disciplined, there's not a line, then they keep doing what they want to do. And yesterday afternoon, they were looking for somebody to kill. Did you hear what I said? And the police officer heard the shots and ran there to protect the community and ultimately got shot himself. But I am sick to my stomach of them going, oh, did you know his age? It doesn't make any difference. If you're old enough to hold a gun and point it at a cop and pull the trigger, you're old enough to be shot or to go to jail. Just saying.
Were they dealing drugs?
Not at that moment. We don't have any drug charges. They were just smoking drugs and looking for somebody to shoot at 5:30 in the afternoon. Think about it. If you want to talk about chronological age, do you know any children that go, hey, let's get out of school today, get our guns, smoke a little dope, and shoot up some people? These are hardened criminals, and don't be misled by those that want to tell you anything else. And had the people who wanted to coddle them and hug a thug cared enough to give them the services that they needed to get their attention, we wouldn't have been here where they were looking for somebody to kill and then shot and tried to kill a police officer. The only reason Officer Smith's alive right now is he was a bad shot, because he ran around the corner, bladed back around, and ambushed the officer as the officer was pursuing him to take him into custody and to protect the rest of the community from another shooting episode by this guy.
Can you explain why he was expelled from school?
I don't have any information about school records, and if I did, most of that is protected by law, so I couldn't respond to that if I knew.
We've confirmed that one of the three individuals lived in West Lakeland.
And where?
One of the three lived in West Lakeland. I'm assuming the other two also.
Yes. Actually, I've got all of their addresses here. One of them lived on Kansas. One of them lived in, West 720 Emma Street. Jermaine Julian, the 19-year-old, lived at 720 Emma Street. Leonard Spate lived at 2581 Chestnut Woods Drive. And Wesley lived at 604 Kansas.
This may be a comment more than a question, but I think the reason why the age is important is that we're all horrified. So I think of a 13-year-old kid in middle school getting detention. If it's really bad, you get suspension. Now they're out trying to kill cops. It's just pretty overwhelming.
And they're trying to kill cops who are trying to stop them from killing people in the neighborhood. So that should be the story. We got a 13 and a 14-year-old with a gun trying to shoot people up in a neighborhood, driven by a 19-year-old with a long history, and they've all been caught breaking into cars or attempting to break into cars.
Is this related to the Iowa Street shooting? Are they related to that gang?
There's no indication of that, no.